Tyler Ham Pong. I get that right?
Yeah, that's it.
Wow, I'm a name expert, man. I'm an expert at nameology. I don't know if you ever seen Boondock Saints. Expert at nameology or naming.
Love that movie. Classic.
whatever that phrase was. So,
Yeah.
Tyler, yeah, thanks for coming on the show, man. Actor, filmmaker, travel host, extraordinaire. I don't know, Instagrammer maybe. I think we linked up on Instagram or LinkedIn, one of those two. But yeah, man, Tyler, welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit more about who you are, what you do, what you've been up to.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I believe we did link up over Instagram, but as you said, you pretty much nailed it. I'm an actor, filmmaker, travel host, which, you know, there isn't a lot of travel happening right now, so that's kind of on the back burner. But yeah, I do all those things. I wear multiple hats. Right now, we're in my production company, Kill the Pig Productions, and I operate out of Los Angeles. And me and my wife run my company.
Okay. Awesome.
And we focus. It's a production company. We do a lot of short films, and we also do actor services like audition taping, demo reels, and headshots.
So now this is something that me and a number of colleagues have been trying to figure out: is how is there money to be made in short films? Is there like a market? Is there like and especially probably now, I know there's maybe some short form. I mean, especially YouTube. I mean, people have been maybe getting a lot of Google AdSense and stuff like that off YouTube. But what's like, what if you were, since you're putting your time into short films, what is that? What's that money making area for short films?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And, you know, I honestly have the same question myself. Short films are not lucrative. I'll say that right off the bat. But what they do is offer the creative exposure. So with our short films, Leap and Club Rats, we screened at big festivals. Some of them were Oscar qualifying festivals, and just having that exposure to then take the short and allow it to have a life after the film festival circuit online. For example, we have them uploaded to YouTube and Vimeo, but they're also on Amazon Prime Video. So there is some sort of residual built into streaming platforms like Amazon or something like that. So
Prime's now taking shorts.
Yes. Yeah. Amazon Prime Video, which is, I guess it's Amazon Video Direct, which is a kind of a subset of Prime. They have different like umbrellas. So it's not, it is Prime, but it's not part of their Prime original content, I guess is the difference.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so what's dawned on me is, you know, say I got a couple of short films. Well, first off, you know, short films before, it's like, okay, we make a short version. You know, Napoleon Dynamite was picked up off of, the name of the short.
I remember that short. I saw it. It was an old black and white short.
It was like Picante. I remember the name of the short. The name of the short version was a really weird name. It was like Picante or Delamonte or something like that. And it was pretty funny, you know, and it definitely, you know, gave a good idea. You know, like you shoot like a really unique short like that. That's what picked up Napoleon Dynamite. That's what picked up THX 1138. I think was Lucas's college thesis film, was a short version of THX. Yeah. What was another one? Bottle Rocket, which made the Wilson brothers famous.
Wes Anderson. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, that's right. It was like a Wes Anderson and the Wilson brothers.
Yeah, it was. I think it was Wes Anderson's first film, and yeah, it's just kismet that these filmmakers work with these great actors in their first movies, and then end up working with them throughout their entire careers. Like that's a similar story to Martin Scorsese and Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro was apparently in a Martin Scorsese thesis film, and they just ended up being lifelong collaborators since then. Yeah. I need to find that's the thing. I need to do thesis films and find me somebody to put me in their movies for the rest of my life.
Right. Right. You
Yeah,
find that one filmmaker and he's just like, I gotta have Tyler in every movie. Even, you know, he makes it
he's
big.
My muse.
I might not make it big. You might not make it big, but like he made it big. So he just kept bringing, you know, us back into that film or something. Yeah.
Right. I just want to be like Adam Sandler's buddies who keep showing up in his movies. You know, right. the same actors that repeat over and over again. Those are career goals.
Absolutely. Yeah. And another thing that is a way to market shorts is, you know, like there's this big thing now that's been happening for like 10 years is these anthology films, VHS and VHS2, Double X, which was, and they're anthology films. So it's a feature-length film. It's like a 90-minute film comprised of 4 shorts that might all be horror, you know, and it's usually, I mean, these anthology films are usually horror. Just came out on Prime and Hulu. No, just came out on Hulu, at least, was a movie called Books of Blood. And Books of Blood follows this guy trying to find the Books of Blood. But as he's looking for it, someone will tell him a different story. And then it's like a 30-minute or 20-minute short. And it's a, you know, a very violent, graphic horror featurette, you know, short, cool. 20-minute, 25-minute, 30-minute horror short. And so it's like, even though if you shot a short film, you know, 10 years ago, compiling 3 or 4 of your shorts into a feature, I think people are maybe buying that. If not, just like, is there a shorts network? Is there some, you know, like you were saying, I don't know.
There are other distribution platforms other than Amazon and Vimeo and YouTube. Like I also have Leap up on Prime TV, which is another distributor. And yeah, it's just, you know, it's just about disseminating the short, like in as many places as possible to get as many eyes on it, because it's not about selling the short to get it on Netflix or something, because Netflix, you know, it doesn't take a lot of shorts. Like big platforms aren't going to be showcasing short films. It's not like a big platform kind of thing.
Right.
But for me, distributing it to a bunch of places to get as many eyes on it is where the success of the short film kind of lies, is in the view count.
And like you mentioned before, you had them, you know, entered into film festivals. You said Academy.
Yeah, the one of the film festivals was LA Shorts, which is an Academy Award qualifying festival. So if you won at that festival, then you're in consideration for the Oscars. So there are some for the short film category. Now, and is there money in that, or is that just like the ultimate exposure? Yeah, I'm sure there's money. You know, I don't know if there's a cash prize involved in winning an Oscar. I mean, I really don't think the cash prize would be the benefit of winning the Oscar, but just having that exposure would be insane. I mean, that is something that definitely boosts people's career for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's just tricky because there's a couple of shorts, and I've written a couple of short scripts, but then I just basically, you know, copy and pasted it into a feature script as an anthology film script as well, with a
That's
you
cool.
know, like a kind of like a grander anthology film, feature film, kind of this grander kind of encapsulating thing. And just trying to push that, because, you know, some people, they want to look at shorts, or some people want to look at features. And I say, okay, well, if you're looking for shorts, I got 4 shorts. Oh, you're only looking for features? I got 1 feature script. It's an anthology film consisting of 4 shorts. So it's that kind of, it's that just however the hell I can get, you know, something put out there. But
yeah, no, I love anthology films. They definitely have an audience out there. You mentioned VHS and VHS2. Oh my God, I love those movies. VHS2, the alien abduction film.
Yeah.
I love found footage. So found footage anthology film is kind of like where I'm like a moth to the flame to that kind of movie. So
Yeah.
there is definitely an audience for anthology films. I think it's made a resurgence just because indie film is so accessible right now for filmmakers. Digital filmmaking has made making movies so easy now for the consumer. So you'll see a renaissance in these kind of subgenres, and it's good for the found footage genre because it's one of my favorite horror genres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when Blair Witch came out. You know, and I'm always talking about Blair Witch on this show, but Blair Witch came out, but what's funny is right before Blair Witch, the show Cops was on Fox, and so X-Files did an episode where they teamed up with the producers of Cops, and so the filmmakers of Cops came and like showcased Fox and Mulder and Scully. No, Fox and Mulder, Scully.
Scully and Mulder.
Fox Mulder.
Because his name is Fox Mulder.
Fox Mulder, yeah, Mulder and Scully.
Yeah.
Dana Scully, she couldn't stand the crew. She was so annoyed, and Fox was eating it up. Mulder was eating it up. He was just being a ham and trying to like show off and try to become a superstar on the show. But it was really funny. But it was such this cool dynamic where they kind of merged two shows, X-Files with Cops. And I think a year later, Blair Witch came out and changed the freaking game of this whole mockumentary. Because before, I grew up watching Spinal Tap, and I thought Spinal Tap was real as a kid. You know, you're watching until like their 20th drummer blew up for no reason, and then I realized, oh, this is just
spontaneous combustion.
Exactly. Like every drummer they go on tour with blows up for whatever reason. It was so funny. But like growing up, first seeing that, I thought that was real. It was so well done. I thought it was real. Come to find out it was fake. It's a mockumentary. And so when I first saw Blair Witch, I thought that's a horror mockumentary. And then it kind of changed the game to now it's these found footage horror movies. But and I brought this up even this very particular note on this podcast before, and it's the genius of filmmaking. It's the beauty of filmmaking, especially. Not only was Blair Witch kind of starting found footage horror movies, found footage filmmaking, mockumentary filmmaking. They were experimenting with it. Not only did they start it, but then they were also kind of playing within the genre. Even though they were starting it, they were playing within it, especially with the ending. And I always talk about the ending, how the most horrifying part was the ending, how the guy, they lost the first guy, the second guy went down in the basement with the camcorder that has a built-in mic. And she's upstairs with a 16mm camera that has no built-in sound. It has no sync sound to it. He gets hit in the head. You hear that all of a sudden, but you can barely hear her. When it cuts to her footage, her audio is so low because she's getting closer and closer to the mic, to the other camera. But you see her footage. It's full screen, her footage is. And like you're following it, but her audio is just growing louder and louder and louder and louder until she gets down to the basement. She's just as loud and screaming and like full volume, and then the end. And
I have chills with you describing this to me. That movie, I mean, that's a classic movie. It gives me chills just hearing the description of it. And the point that you made about how the mic in one camera is working and the other one isn't. I mean, that's such like an attention to detail that just brings the authenticity of the project to life. And it's like, whether that was intentional or if it was a happy accident. I know the story behind the making of the film, in that the filmmakers would never meet with the cast and would leave them instructions. They had a map, the cast had a map where to go. And they would sometimes get instructions sent to them, or they would find instructions in the woods, but it was pretty much like a lot of improv. So that movie is just full of happy accidents, and that's
Yeah.
that's another example of kind of guerrilla, kind of do-it-yourself filmmaking that is really inspiring for people at my level who need to be crafty when making a film, who need who need to be able to stretch that dollar and call in favors to make, like, you know, a 10 or, you know, a $20,000 film on like a couple $100. It's like, it's really a skill to stretch that dollar. And like with Blair Witch Project, they totally exemplify that.
Well, not only that, I think it's the discipline. I think it's the acceptance of, you know, solid matter, the acceptance of, you know, you need oxygen to breathe, you need money, but there's a way to, like, okay, it's that acceptance, it's that discipline to say, listen, we only have $5 to make this thing. We got to cut. Not only do we have to cut costs and this, that, and anything, we have to probably cut on quality. We have to cut on, we got to take a dump on cool props and costumes. We got to, like, you know, maybe embrace the fact that it's low budget, and maybe so, okay, we know it now. It's low to no budget. Do we actually have fun with that idea? And that's, and I started, me and some colleagues started a web series where it was, you know, we were always trying to come up with this idea. Like, I was always acting or ADing or production coordinating on somebody else's thing, you know? But at the end of the day, me and the colleagues were thinking, like, when's our next music video to a track that my buddy made? When's our next short film? When's our next web series? When's our next cool little short film? What are we going to do that we started? But having been an actor on so many of those ID crime shows, you know, I've played a detective in something, you know, 80 times. I played a cop in something 80 times. And it just dawned on me, okay, I see how low budget these things are. Okay, cool idea, you know, ID crime show, but Bruce Wayne is done being Batman for the night, goes home, has a cocktail, and watches ID. What would he see on ID? Or Tony Stark takes the suit off, has a cocktail, turns on ID. What would he see on ID? And ultra low budget. I've seen how they shoot these shows, ultra low budget ID crime show set in the Marvel universe or set in the DC universe.
That's awesome.
And again, it's like, you know, 2/3 of those episodes is voiceover and, you know, like a guy, regular Joe against a green screen. I found a guy that looks like Clark Kent. You look just like Clark Kent. Put on some fake glasses, sit against the green screen, and he plays Clark Kent. He's a daily reporter. Of course, he's a reporter at the Daily Planet.
Yeah,
he knows all these criminals, so he's, you know, describing these criminals, what they did, who they are, and stuff like that. And you kind of play within this joke where, you know, he has a little lower third. You know, Clark Kent, Daily Reporter. People are like, "Holy shit!" Okay, so they're talking about these criminals, you know, as if they're real, but within that universe. And then, okay, so dramatic reenactments. How do we pull that off? So pre-COVID, we went to Comic Cons. We filmed a lot of these cosplayers, all these different Comic Cons, sci-fi cons, things of that nature. And then
I love them. We have WonderCon out here in LA, which I go to every year whenever possible.
So that, I mean, so it was just like, hey, listen, we have fun. These ID shows, I've worked on them, and and they pay the bills. Don't get me wrong, but they are super low budget. They know how to cut corners. They know how to, like, bang out episodes.
Yeah.
You know,
I worked on a crime recreation TV show called Bizarre Murders, and it's the exact same deal. It was crime recreation. We had, you know, former, I think it was a former FBI agent who was our expert, who, you know, who would study the cases kind of the day of or the day before and come in and give commentary on the case. And it was a fun show to work on. But as you said, we're very concerned about budget as well. And, you know, renting a soundstage that has multiple locations on it, so we can shoot, you know, 2/3 of an episode in one location where it has a jail cell, a police station, a hospital room, a bar. So we just jump from all these different sets in the same day to to just like churn an episode out as quickly as possible. The thing is that like we had to become so crafty that we had to start making the same location look different from, they couldn't be in the same police precinct each episode when we're in a different city each episode. So it was also a lesson on making film on a low budget. So it was actually quite an educational experience for me as a producer to get experience finding these locations and putting together these small crews and casting the projects and getting it all together. It was a fun experience.
Yeah, and not only, you know, having worked on them, but seeing the final cut. You know, I was mostly an actor, but it's like I remember doing this whole scene with like these two other guys and interrogating them or being interrogated, you know, whatever the case. And then I see it, and you know, depending on the show, depending on the show, that dramatic reenactment was blurred out. All the audio is dumped out. They put, you know, atmospheric music or eerie music or foreboding music over it. They made everything blurry. They made everything kind of kilted angle. Like you didn't see my eyes. You only saw like my saw a close up of my mouth, and it kind of like, you know, pans to my face and then away from my face. I'm like, they hardly used anything. But then it dawned on me, like, that's how they're pulling this off, because they're shooting at the same 3 different locations. You know, I've been to like the same place. They would say to me, hey, do you know the college, or do you know the so-and-so house, or do you know the so-and-so art center? And I'm like, yeah, like that's where we're shooting. You know, we're going to be there for 3 days. Okay, no problem. It looks totally different. Every episode looks totally different. And they might experiment with some clothes. They got the same uniforms. They just change out the patches. Is it going to be the light blue cop uniform, or is it going to be that black SWAT tactical uniform? And then if I'm playing a detective, I'm always bringing like the same, you know, 15 different articles of clothing, you know.
Yeah.
Pre-COVID, I always kept, I never took the shit out of my car. You know, they were like, hey, you know, dope day rate, 4 days. You remember that house? Yep. Come on over. Got all the stuff in there. And they, at one point, having worked with me so often, they just come to my car and be like, that. I get dressed, start rolling. And like, that's
the true mark of an actor, having a closet in your car.
In your car.
I'd say. Yeah. I feel like you're not an actor unless you have, you know, a couple different characters in your trunk.
Yep. Basically, I got the generic detective, or like the cop thing, and basically, as far as an actor goes, man, typecast the hell out of me. Detective this or officer that. I know where my strengths lie, and you know,
I saw some of your headshots in uniform. I mean, they look great. You look great. I think it's definitely something that, like, once you break into that niche, you know, people know you for that. Yeah,
that's the goal.
Yeah.
Hopefully, when this floodgates open, man, and we're back out there doing the thing.
I know. Well, I can't believe it's been this long. I had no expectation that it would be.
I had all the expectation in the world. 2021, vaccines, cures, back at it, having fun.
Yeah.
Well, you know, speaking of which, how have you been impacted personally, professionally by the last year, I guess?
Yeah. Well, I guess let's start at the beginning. Back in like February, March, before the pandemic, everything was normal. I was hired for, you know, a travel job, and I was going to host another video for to promote international tourism in the States, and that's something that I've been doing since 2014. I will travel to different states and kind of highlight different tourist attractions that maybe don't get as much of the attention as some of the main attractions of a certain city, or maybe cities that are adjacent to a big city that need a little bit more tourism. So that's kind of a work that I was doing consistently, but obviously the pandemic happened, that got pushed back, and all the shoots, you know, all travel shoots are kind of on hold for the time being. So that definitely threw me for a loop. and all the production that we would normally go into at my production company, we had to kind of reimagine and start taking COVID precautions when, you know, when clients hire us, and have masks and sanitize everything and gloves. And it's just changed the whole mentality of running a business.
Yeah.
Auditions too, as an actor, as I'm sure you have you have experience. We're now doing everything by self-tape, everything, which was pretty popular to begin with. So it's not too much of a change, but I've been to one in-person audition since the pandemic started. And I was surprised that they even did that one in-person audition. But it was kind of when, I think it was maybe after like the first wave, when everybody thought that, okay, California flattened the curve. That was the kind of, that was the saying then. All right, we flattened the curve. We flattened the curve. It's all right, we flattened the curve. And then, you know, we go out into the world, and then all of a sudden the curve spikes, and it's like, okay, we have to shut down everything. But in that interim, I had one in-person audition this whole year. Right. But other than that, yeah, it has definitely isolated us a lot more.
Yeah, you know, for me, as far as acting goes, as far as going back on set, I had to be super, super disciplined, super sacrificial, and just say, you know, I'm not comfortable going back on set unless a certain day rate, a certain mileage from home, and there was all these stipulations. Me and the wife had to sit down. Listen, I was very blessed because I do a lot of crew work too as well, and I got super blessed with a lot of remote, virtual conferences, seminars, webinars, live streaming. You know, taking in Zoom and live streaming. If you've seen the podcast, then I've been doing a lot of that in regards to, you know, corporate and industrial events and gigs and webinars, seminars, whatever the case may be. So that's pretty much been like the forefront as far as, you know, the well-paying gigs and work here and there. But yeah, as far as, you know, what I, you know, dream of doing, you know, the big scale stuff, I was only back on set, I think once. I think that was not January. I think it was November or December for a DoD industrial training video, the you know, the video modules that go into those military courses, those online courses, and there might be those videos that you have to answer questions based off what you saw in the video and this, that, and the other thing. And so did a bunch, you know, did a couple of days doing a bunch of scenes for this military training package, online course package type deal. And that was it. I think that was 2 days back on set. It felt great to be finally back on set, but then, you know, comes the winter, comes the drop in immunities, and got hit with COVID myself. Me and the family got hit with COVID ourselves. So it's terrible. It was, I mean, no matter, it could I have an episode of this, a round table, where I have like the same usual, my usual colleagues. We always have a round table and discuss. It's a slightly different podcast episode, but, you know, he said to me, he goes, it couldn't have happened to a more safer, more COVID compliant guy. You know,
that seems to be the case, right?
Yeah. And it just goes to show that, you know, we need a vaccine super fast, because you could be as super careful as possible, and it gets on, I don't know, maybe it got on my mask and I just happened to touch my mask on. I don't know.
Could be anything. I mean, it's not just like you being careful, it's about the people around you being careful. And if somebody who has COVID is around you and isn't being safe, you know, you can do all that you can to keep yourself healthy. But if somebody who's sick coughs directly on you, there's not much you can do in that moment. So yeah, it's just an example to wear your mask. Yeah. Even if you're vaccinated.
Yeah. And the COVID compliance supervisors for sets. I'm a certified COVID They used to be COVID compliance officers. I'm a certified one as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now
CCO.
yeah, I think they changed it to COVID compliance manager, just
Mm.
because officer, like, oh, we don't want to be, looked upon as like officers, like, bearing
Oh wow.
down, our COVID compliance hammers. But, COVID compliance manager, COVID compliance, what the heck are they called now? I guess managers now. But, like, yeah, couldn't be more needed. A COVID,
Yeah.
COVID compliance officers, managers, COVID compliance on set, and I took a risk doing that one gig, paid
Yeah.
well, and it was great to be back on set. Came home, no issues, no temp, so we did all the screenings, but just from something else, got it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just been tricky trying to, like, stay busy, stay productive, stay creative,
Yeah.
and maybe it hasn't been.
I think, I mean, I at the beginning of the pandemic, I had a lot of distraction because I had just accepted the position as coordinator of a filmmaking competition.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was a lot of work. So, and that was during the early days of the pandemic, all throughout until October. So it did take up a lot of my time and a lot of my energy to coordinate this whole filmmaking competition. So I was lucky enough to be distracted early on with work, and it was a very creative time to be able to encourage other filmmakers to make movies in 72 hours. That's what the competition essentially was. It was a 72-hour film competition, and it was targeted towards diverse filmmakers, and it's put on by the Asian American Film Lab. So there's a focus on Asian American filmmakers and Asian American creatives, and part of the competition is that we link the winners of the competition up with mentors from ABC and NBC and different industry professionals. So that whole competition lasted. I was coordinating and getting together sponsors and judges all the way from March until the competition happened in the first week of June. And then the in-person screening was pushed back, obviously, and it never happened. So it eventually turned into an online screening, which happened in October. So all the while this is happening, I'm managing all these fires. I'm transitioning a competition that's normally in person to digital, and a competition that requires people to make films. And now I'm telling people, okay, make a film, but do it in an innovative, creative way. Do it over Zoom. Do it, over your phones, and don't actually meet, or follow the restrictions wherever you are. And some films came in from, one film came in from South Korea, which had completely different COVID regulations on how to, stop the spread of COVID. So we encouraged everybody to follow these guidelines and to make their movies with a different kind of process in mind. So it did take it was very absorbing of all my time for like the first couple of months of COVID. So I had a lot of distraction with the 72-hour shootout in the early days.
That's awesome. I mean, but again, I mean, that's good that there are these, these projects, these opportunities to remain productive and creative and stressed like we were back in the day. I got to go to set or got to run that film festival in person, but now it's just maybe a little bit more convenient, from the comfort of our own home, and we can focus more on the thing instead of like traffic or oh, I got to get gas and traffic.
Yeah.
Traffic.
Yeah, you're telling me. I mean, like, I know DC is one of the worst cities for traffic.
And LA is too, right? It's like
LA is definitely one of the worst, but I know from my sister who lives in DC that DC is the top of the list of one of the worst cities for traffic. I just always hear about the Collector.
Yeah.
Isn't that a thing? The Collector.
The Collector.
That's the bus. Isn't that the bus circuit?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never heard that phrase, the Collector.
Oh, okay. I think it's the name for part of the transit or part of the city transit. But regardless, I'm sure it's hell to deal with. But I'm glad now that we are working a lot from home, and I kind of beefed up my voiceover setup. And
Yep.
yeah, just because I've been getting more voiceover jobs. I just did voiceover for an animated short,
Very cool.
and I recorded that in my studio. So yeah, it's about learning to adapt how to work from home now versus traveling to set. And
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was sort of the dream for me to be able to work from home, to work on my own schedule, and to work on a number of turn passion projects into the work, turn that into the business, the passion projects, and this kind of forced that. And I still got to do some corporate and industrial stuff to pay bills and make to make the ends meet. But a lot of focus has been able to be put upon financial investments, future investments, kind of looking into kind of that kind of realm as well. But the passion projects, trying to turn that into a thing, make that the thing. You know what I mean? I mean, the podcast, it started off as, what else is there right now? March and April and May, there was nothing going on.
Yeah.
And so it was like, listen, I'm beating my head against the wall right now. I got a couple of cool things. I'm actually utilizing this time, but let me start this podcast and reach out to other creatives, other, artists and musicians, filmmakers, actors, tell me everything that sucks and tell me everything that's cool. And how are you utilizing the time? How are you making the most out of this? And, me and some colleagues tried this podcast before and it failed twice. But now with this particular thing, I think I'm at 120, 130 episodes and just doing it and just loving it. And it's just like, and it's like a quadruple effect here. I'm networking with you. You're out in LA, but I'm networking with you. And at some point, a year or two from now, you might be like, hey, we're shooting this thing in DC. I need a cop. First, maybe, and if it doesn't, and if that doesn't happen, that doesn't happen. But, all these different guests have different talents and different and different, arenas that they're working in. And I love to just jump into anything and see what happens. Or I just love to share ideas. I just love to chat and that sort of thing. And it works. Yeah. I really don't foresee myself being the next Jimmy Fallon or the next Larry King or anything like that, or the next Donahue, nothing, certainly not that. But again, this thing just started off because there was nothing else going on. And, just reach out to folks. They'd love to, at that point, people were just excited to like get online and share. And it kind of grew from there. But, like you said, it's just keeping things productive, I guess.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are more receptive to doing Zoom interviews these days and podcasts than they would have been pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
Even before the pandemic, podcasts were kind of on a rise in popularity, but I think now it's become a lot more of a mainstream kind of medium that people listen to. So, I mean, I've done more podcasts during the pandemic, I think, than than I did before pandemic, which is just indicative of how much people want this content, or how much people want content in general to kind of distract them from everything that's going on in the world right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's not the quality, it's the content, it's the ideas, it's the, you know, you can experiment with, you know, the interface and some graphics and some logos. You can experiment with transition of music and effects and things of that nature. But again, that there's a whole nother thing there, just like kind of experimenting and playing with different things and seeing where that takes you. But at the same time, it's the content. I mean, you and I are having a completely different discussion than the person I talk to tomorrow will have. And still it's all, you know, it's gonna intrigue our episode might intrigue Joe, but it's not, but tomorrow's won't intrigue Joe, but it might intrigue, you know, somebody, it might intrigue Bob, and something totally different. And again, for me personally, it's just about leaving it open and open range of just whatever the hell's going on. You're an actor and filmmaker, which is a lot closer to what I do, is acting and filmmaking. But I had a musician on the other day, and we just talked about something completely different, but we're still both hit with the same, okay, been isolating in the house for almost a year now. How have you been creative as opposed to how have I been creative? How have you been productive, and that sort of thing? And it's just unique, man. Like you said, it's like, you know, talk radio was one thing, and then Howard Stern turned talk radio into something completely different. And then Adam Carolla, you know, started doing that online, you know, on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts. And then Joe Rogan jumped on, started doing something completely different, but within that same kind of, like, you know, evolving and progressing that same kind of science and art at the same time. And it just keeps evolving. And now there's like apps just strictly dedicated to podcasts. And it's this is baffling to me.
Yeah. I love it. I never used to listen to podcasts before. It's a pretty recent thing for me to jump into, but I mean, it's ruined me for reading. Right. I'll say that much. It has ruined me for reading. I used to read so many books. I was very prolific in the amount of books that I read, but living in LA now, I just don't read as much. And maybe that's also a thing with I used to live in New York before I moved to LA. So I would, my primary form of transportation was the subway. And I would always have a book on me and read for that, you know, 30 minutes that I was on the subway going somewhere, 30 minutes back from an audition. I get, like, you know, an hour of reading in any given day. But I just you don't get that in the traffic. You can listen to books, but no, it's ruined me for reading.
Yeah.
Podcasts and driving have ruined me for reading.
Well, yeah, for me, podcasts, you know, it's a very select few. It depends on the guest. For me, it's a lot of short form stuff. So it's a lot of YouTube that I'll have playing in the background, and it's a lot of, like, top 10 this, or you know, I've got like my 10 different categories: pro wrestling, comics, movies and music, movies, TV shows, music. Yeah, man, I love listening to, like, the old pro wrestling behind the scenes stuff, you know, like when you, Bruce Pritchard,
I haven't listened to any of Bruce Pritchard's podcasts, but I listened to the Comedy Store, or is it the Comedy Store guys? The Store Horsemen is what they call themselves, because they're the Comedy Store comics, but obviously they're making a reference to the Four Horsemen.
Horsemen?
There are a couple of stand-up comics in Los Angeles, and they talk about pro wrestling. And that's the wrestling podcast that I listen to, the Store Horsemen.
And
their quality, now they have to do everything remotely, so their quality is a little different than
I couldn't
what
care
it
less,
is
though. That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it is and again, I brought this up a number of times. That's a staple of the times. It's a staple of the times. You know what I'm saying? Like doing this podcast, you and I were not in the studio together, sitting across from each other with those mics and those pop screens and a couple of drinks. You know, we're doing this through Zoom, but that's a staple of the time. We'll look back on this in a year or two or three and be like, shit, man, those were rough days, man. I remember those days. 2020 was crazy. 2021 even kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But man, what a great chat I had with Glenn for an hour or 2 hours, you know, and what a great sharing of ideas. Now we're working on something, or maybe we're back on the podcast again. But you know, you look back at how film changed from the 50s to 60s, and you look at how film changed from 60s to 70s. You can tell by looking at these films. You can even tell kind of what year, what decade they were produced in. You know, Bonnie and Clyde was like out of the nowhere super violent, and a lot of people like were like losing their mind about how violent Bonnie and Clyde was. But that was a staple of the time, as that was like the first movie to come out and be ultra violent like that, and it shook the industry. And then you've got you know, movies from the 70s, a lot of those B movies, you know, those biker chicks from hell type of movies, blaxploitation, you know, Shaft. You know, Shaft and Superfly, you know, all those Cleopatra Jones, Foxy Brown. You know, when those movies were coming out, it was like it was a rise of black filmmakers and black cinema, and it was gritty and you know, a lot of nudity, and you're like, I can tell that was made in the 70s. And then you had, you know, the 80s movies. You could tell they were shot in the 80s. It was certain staples of the times. And now you're going to see
a lot. And the 80s was so much more like bubblegum too. Yeah. Like everything, the studio system was really on the rise in the 80s. So there's this definite like,
you hear that music,
cheery quality. Yeah.
You hear that music, you just know that's like, I mean, that's an 80s sound. It's an 80s look. And it was a staple of the time. And now you're going to have like all this virtual stuff, terrible, you know, Zoom mic audio, terrible Zoom camera, web camera, you know, quality, you know, stuff. And we're still having a great time chatting and doing this and talking about that and kind of planning this. And then, you know, 3 years later, you've got a bunch of films that come out, and it's like, yeah, we talked about that. We talked about that on that podcast, and that podcast looks like such, you know, so different.
This is a time capsule.
But that's exactly what it is.
Of what we're living in, right?
That's exactly what it is.
This like encapsulates kind of our mentality and like our state of being. To bring it back to the 72-hour shootout that I coordinated this past year, the theme, the mystery theme that I assigned to all the filmmakers was oh my god, I forget what it was, but it was going viral. Oh my god, I had a brain fart there. Going viral was the theme, so people could either take it in the coronavirus kind of theme, which was very, you know, easily planted in there. And as Asian American filmmakers, there's a lot of material to draw from because of the anti-Asian racism that kind of was associated with coronavirus. But it also offered filmmakers to go down the digital route of going viral as if I'm an influencer, or, you know, my TikToks or my Instagram is becoming super popular. That is also what going viral means. So we have all these films that are super timely and are very relevant to our situation today, just like what you and I were talking about, where these films are made over Zoom, or you know, their social distancing, or it's about, you know, being quarantined. A lot of the stories were stories of hardship in quarantine, or stories of comedy in quarantine. The along with the mystery theme, we also included a mystery item. So all the films had to incorporate toilet paper into their films, which at the time in March, when we, or I guess in June when we revealed the theme, toilet paper was a very much an ongoing topic of discussion.
Yeah,
with
and that was
everybody
like
kind of hoarding it.
I was like all of March. I was like all of
Yeah.
March, some of April. Yeah, that toilet paper
Yeah.
frenzy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I wanted to include that in the theme to just put another indicator of the time, and just to make it like a bit of a time capsule. And now we have all these films that have this through line of they're themed on going viral, and they have toilet paper, and there's just like this through line and this connection between all these films that is really indicative of 2020, to say the least.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of which, what's next on the agenda? What's the next set of goals? Next set of plans? What's next on the agenda for Tyler Ham Pong?
Well, tomorrow, my wife and I are going out to film some stuff in the desert. She was cast in a Western, and part of it is that we're filming some of it on our own, given the circumstances, and given that I also have a production company. It doesn't hurt that I'm able to film stuff for my wife. But we're going to go out and film that, and it's I'm probably not supposed to talk too much about the project, but
Okay.
it's a Western. We're going out to shoot it, and it's going to be fun because we'll have, you know, prop guns and blood, and it's just like a little snippet. So that's exciting. But for myself, I don't
mean to cut you off. So the producers are having you guys shoot some of the scenes for their thing.
Correct. Yes, they sent us a shot list and props, and, you know, some stuff that we would need, and then finding
ways somehow to like produce this thing, and I love that. And like you said, you can't say too much, and it's well, hell, I mean, for me, the action is the juice. I always use that phrase from Heat. For me, the action is the juice. And so, I mean, it's just still like making something and making it work.
Yeah.
Finding a way to make it work.
I know. And it's great for her because it's kind of they've already wrapped on the film. And then this part for her introduces her character in the film, but it introduces her character for the following film. So, you know, it's under the assumption then that when they make the next movie, they'll be able to make it in person together. But for the time being, we're gonna shoot this one piece for a little teaser for the next movie.
Okay.
But that's really exciting. I always love shooting in the desert. All of my work has tends to have a desert scene in it. I mean, when you live in California, it's hard not to use the landscape.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've always loved desert themed, you know, like in the 80s and 90s, it was always those desert killer movies, those desert robbery movies,
Natural Born Killers,
The Hitcher, oh man. And
Fool for Love, I guess, but that's a Sam Shepard, or was it? Yeah, lots of great '90s movies take place in the desert. What was the Tarantino film that he wrote? That
From Dusk Till Dawn.
That's a
desert film.
Yeah.
Oh, what he wrote is
that is right. But he wrote another one that has
True Romance.
Yeah, True Romance. That's it. Yeah, They've got desert in True Romance.
I think so. Well, I think they started off in Detroit and they went out west.
Yeah, and then they make their way to Los Angeles and then to Mexico. Spoilers.
Right. But there's this movie with Josh Duhamel. I don't know why I always forget it, but it's right on that desert. It's right on that desert film level. It's so good. Oh man, Alternate Route.
Okay, I'm not familiar with it.
Scenic Route. That's what it's called. So Josh Duhamel did this movie called Scenic Route, and it's dope on like 10 different levels. Indie film. It was like one of those. When this came out, it was one of those straight to Redbox type of movies.
Nice.
But it's definitely worth a watch. It's just two dudes, stuck in a car, broken down on a side of the desert road, starting to get annoyed with each other, and things escalate from there, and it's freaking awesome. Scenic Route with Josh Duhamel. But yeah, I've always dug like those kind of trapped out in the middle of bumfuck nowhere type of suspense thrillers, action thrillers, those kind of movies. Yeah, there was this weird one called Route 666 with Lou Diamond Phillips. I just saw it like a month ago. B movie, action horror, B movie, Lou Diamond Phillips. There's Lori Petty's in it. There's a couple other recognizable faces in it. And such a ridiculous kind of premise, but still you could tell they were having fun making it. And it's just one of those weird, quirky action horror B movies, desert flick. But then back to you. More stuff on your agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh my goodness, you distracted me with all the talk about scenic desert movies, which I could talk about for hours. Yeah, other than that, you said that the pandemic has been a good time for people to be creative. And with that in mind, I've kind of been working on my writing portfolio as well. So I finished writing my second pilot, The Real McCoy, which is based on a short film that I made for the 72-hour film competition years ago. And it's about a wrestler who says a racist slur on the air and then has to deal with the fallout. And the management is going one way with it, but they also have some of the management wants to take advantage of the opportunity and, really turn him heel with it. But he didn't say it to turn heel. He said it for other reasons. So there's a lot of competing motives. And at the same time, during this whole story, the women's division is also underappreciated. So a character from the women's division, who's a former MMA fighter, is trying to make her way up the ranks and get noticed, while this wrestler who said the racist comment is on his way down. So she's on her way up, he's on his way down, and their stories kind of converge in the middle of this pilot. Very cool. That's something that I've been working on, and I'm very proud of the script that I've been working on, and shown it to a couple of industry friends and gotten notes from industry professionals who know what they're talking about. So I'm excited to just keep working on it and to write more pilots as well. I'm working on another one about a cult that takes place in a desert, no less.
Awesome.
And then yeah,
desert
and then
cults.
Another one. I know, desert cults. I mean, if you're not in a desert, can you really call yourself a cult?
Exactly.
And then I'm also working on a pilot that takes place in a virtual reality, kind of half in the real world, half in the virtual reality, in a near distant future where you can full dive into virtual reality instead of just having the head glasses. It feels like you're completely immersed, and it's a comedy pilot as well. So I'm kind of trying to develop myself as a comedy TV writer with all these scripts that I'm working on.
That's awesome, man. Awesome. Well, like I said, now's the time to start prepping and footnoting. I don't know what you call it. You know, just writing and prepping and breaking down and planning and getting everything ready to get greenlit. You know, once these floodgates open, sort of mentality. It's just like, and I'm guilty of it myself. There's a couple of scripts I really got to put a gift wrap on. There's a couple of things I still have yet to edit that I got to like knock out.
Yeah.
Like, why the hell have not? But you know,
it's never ending. I mean,
it's never ending.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, no matter how many drafts you go through, there's always another version that's waiting afterwards to be written.
And again,
it's never ending.
And again, there's that discipline where you have to say like, all right, I'm freaking done with this thing. Like, this is ready to be shot. I can't I have to stop. You could rewrite something over and over and over again. And you know, there's a good example. I don't know if you ever seen Van Damme's movie Cyborg. You ever seen that movie? It was like 1990.
I don't think so. No.
So that originally was supposed to be a sequel to Dolph Lundgren's Masters of the Universe. And the writer rewrote it because the first Dolph Lundgren's Master of the Universe was kind of a flop, and they didn't want to do a sequel anymore. They decided not to do a sequel, so he rewrote to where it just turned into something completely different.
Yeah.
And now you've got two scripts, and it's like, well, I got to keep rewriting. I'm like, dude, this is done.
Yeah.
You got to have this mentality like, this is done. If you're going to completely change it, you just have a second movie now. Write that.
Yeah.
Because you could rewrite this thing. It will have gone into 17 different movies. Mm-hmm. Go back to some of your rewrites. You don't realize you have 5 different films now, or a series of 5 films.
It's completely different.
Or it's different enough to where it's a sequel now. You rewrote the script so many times. You're at your sequel now. You got to go back into your backup saved files, a final draft or whatever, find that third version of it, and that's your final version of the first freaking movie. You know, it's but like you know, like I was saying, you have to at some point. All right, this is the final draft. This is the freaking final draft. Shelve it, shop it, market it, put together a tagline and outline and however you're going to like pitch it, you know, put together a pitch package or something, but it's done, dude. It's done. Next one and next one and next one.
Yeah.
That's true. That's
because you're always going to get notes regardless. I mean, like, no matter how done it is, people will always give their 2 cents. And it's just a matter of whether those notes are helpful, or sometimes they're just helpful to know that, like, okay, I don't want to ever get a question like that again. So, maybe I don't need to incorporate his note, but how do I change my script so I don't get that question?
Right.
Those are things that you have to consider when putting it together. Yeah.
And I mean, too many times people just get stuck in this perfection box where it's like, at some point you got to do it. At some point you got to pull the trigger, and then you shoot it. And you shoot it, and then another 7 years of editing.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God. I hope it doesn't take that long to edit something, but some stuff just gets caught in post-production hell. But speaking of rewrites, I mean, yeah, it can make a script better, but it can also make a script worse. You see so many big Hollywood films that just have so many just kind of logical fallacies that don't make a lot of sense. And this is the product of scripts being tossed from writer to writer and just adding new elements that it's like, okay, let's fix this note by adding this feature. But it's like, by adding that feature, you undermine the previous one. But that was written by a previous writer, so sometimes there's just that disconnect. And that's a huge problem with a lot of movies, a lot of big blockbuster movies that just kind of go through massive rewrites. And I know that Mulan, for example, was a movie, the live action version of it was a movie that went through a lot of rewrites, and it got a lot of blowback from the Asian American community for having a lot of non-Asian creatives behind the scenes. And part of the controversy was that the original script that they based the current Mulan script on was from the point of view of white Anglo-Saxon character who's thrust into the story, who we see like Mulan's story through his point of view.
No, was that in the animated feature?
No,
there wasn't a white person in the animated feature.
No, and there wasn't a white person in the live action version either. They rewrote it and they rewrote him out, but they optioned the original script that had this white character as a lead. That's just an example of
I just never
all these like crazy rewrites.
I'll just never understand. You had a script, the script from the animation,
right?
What's
with music?
Where's the confusion here? Yeah, but there's this white. Since when was there a white character in Mulan? Well, in the live action version, but you already had a script. The hit movie Mulan, the animated feature, it was a hit. Take that script and maybe update it, or but not to the point where like there's this whole new baffling character out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, that didn't make it into the live action feature. It was just part of the and understandably, but it did also when people found out about it, they were like, why didn't you just start with with an authentic script? But that's just an example of films that get rewritten over and over again to the point of lunacy.
But okay, so Disney had a working formula. They were live action if you want to call it live action. They were live actioning all their animated hits. So are they not using the scripts of the animated hits to fucking make a live action? Because
I don't know how it went with Mulan, because like with Beauty and the Beast, they kept all the songs. They did add
shot for shot, wasn't it? I know Lion King was shot for shot.
Yeah, a lot of it was yeah, exactly. And then Mulan, they just decided to kind of go out of left field with it.
Oh, I have an idea. Like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, there's a lot of criticism for, say, a black Superman, and there's a lot of criticism for a female Thor, and the first thing that comes to my mind is why they're fake characters.
Mm-hmm.
These are fictitious characters. What difference does it make if Superman's black, if Thor's female? These aren't real people. And I've talked about this before. Say we were to do a live action movie, a biopic on JFK, and we made JFK black, and we did a biopic on Martin Luther King. We made Martin Luther King white. Oh, we're gonna play around like that. Takes away from the historical impact that these characters had on society. The fact that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X were black, Gandhi was Indian, fighting against British oppression, or I think it was JFK being white, being a white president, fighting for fighting for black rights and civil rights. That is where their stance was in the world. That's what made their stance so powerful. What, black Superman? I don't care. Black James Bond they're talking about? A female, now 007 is going to be black and female? Does that matter? These are fake characters. These are fictitious characters.
Some people have such an investment in it. In this, like I remember when, I don't know if you're a fan of Doctor Who, but for years it's been a white male playing the character of the Doctor, and the innovation of their storytelling is that the Doctor is an alien who can, when he dies, regenerate into a new person.
Right.
So that's how they justified the first recasting of the Doctor, and they're like, oh, he can be a completely different person, and they made a point to say that. Now, for years, it was a white guy playing this role since like the 60s. But only in the last couple of years, they had their first female doctor. And there was a lot of blowback about that, even though it's justified in the universe that this alien can regenerate into a different race, a different gender, you know, and it's accepted within the logic of the universe. But the fans just had
still a blowback
problem accepting it, because they had gotten used to the doctor as this white cisgender male, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's called, like you mentioned it, it's something like, you know, fans have some sort of investment into it, but I don't know what kind of investment they have. They're not making money back off of it. But
right.
But what was it? I think it's just, you know, like a lot of people have nothing else going on in their lives, in their real lives, that they want to make an argument about something. They want to be offended by something so that they can have some sort of platform to complain about.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, there's way more important things going on right now on planet Earth than a black guy playing James Bond, or a black woman playing James Bond, or an Asian American guy playing Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. Oh no, there's an Asian Green Lantern. There's a black Superman. You know, Wonder Woman is some of the best DCEU movies coming out right now, and there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. And it's because you know it's better actors, better filmmakers, better writing. You have a female writer director, I think, on these projects.
Yeah, Patty Jenkins.
Patty Jenkins is just doing a way better job than some other folks. Yeah, and I think the last thing we need to be worrying about is, I mean, again, listen, my argument is they're fictitious characters. Who cares? You know, but I think when it comes to like biopics, like historical biopics, I think the importance, you know, obviously you don't want to change that, because the importance is a lot of times the fact that somebody was a male or a female, somebody was black or white doing what they did, is the gravitas of their story.
I think it's always a case by case basis. There's no absolutely real answer to it, because it also depends on the style of storytelling. Because the example that you gave with like real life politicians, Hamilton is another example of a musical or a medium that is showing real life politicians that existed in life, but they're colorblind cast. They cast the roles colorblind. So there's like Hamilton himself is played by why am I blanking on all these actors' names? Anyways, it's colorblind casting, so it's not all a bunch of traditional white actors that would have played the founders of America. It's a purposefully diverse cast, but it's to prove a point that it's diverse, and I feel like they accomplished it very well. They're also working in the medium of theater, which is a lot more forgiving for colorblind casting versus film, where a lot of people just can't get over the fallacy that like having a family with mixed ethnicity would kind of confuse people on film, because it's a little bit more literal than theater allows itself to be sometimes. Right. Like I saw a production of Romeo and Juliet where they deliberately made it racial, where Romeo was white, Juliet was black, and then the families were all mixed. And it's like, there's purpose in that. And I feel like it's just getting back to why I went on this tangent. It's always like a case by case basis. And what is the purpose of telling the story? Are you just swapping races because it's kitschy? Because it's popular? Or are you swapping races because it's with the purpose of telling a new, original, authentic story? And that's the big difference.
Yeah, and but then again, Romeo and Juliet's fictitious. Now Hamilton, I get that, because like you said, theater, you know, theater is it's different. Maybe somebody is just better at singing. you know,
Yeah.
somebody just happened to be better at performing the character. And theater, and like you said, theater is kind of a different kind of arena than if you're going to make as opposed to making a serious, and not to say Hamilton's not serious art, but more of a drama, like a very strict historical biopic drama.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those actions, say for example, JFK being white, but from being from Massachusetts is the reason why, and he had a different upbringing.
Yeah.
Than say a white politician from Texas or a segregated state would have. Oh, what the hell was that guy's name that JFK was always battling with? Oh. Anyway,
that's beyond me.
Well, I forget.
I mean, he debated against Nixon that one time, and that was that famous instance of radio versus television, where the television audience sided with JFK and the radio audience sided with Nixon.
Mm-hmm.
Very interestingly.
Yeah.
But what that has to do with anything.
Yeah, Gary Sinise played him like 3 or 4 different times in 3 or 4 different productions. But he was a senator. No, he was a state governor he was a racist state governor from, a segregated state who was running for president, I think, and he got demolished. And he actually, oh geez, well, forget it. I don't. Too much, man.
I know politics, American politics. I'm not. I took it in high school, but you can't tell me to retain it this far.
and pre-1980s history. I mean, it's like
especially details like that. Like, who was the racist governor that JFK battled against?
Right.
Those are far too specific for me.
Right.
But no, yeah. I mean, in that context, especially if you're telling the story of the civil rights movement, obviously the context of their ethnicity, their authentic ethnicity makes sense. It's all just like, what is the purpose of the story and why are you telling it? And then what is the purpose of changing the ethnicity? Because like I could, I am open to a lot of ways of storytelling. So it doesn't mean that it's off limits or anything is off limits, but it just has to be done well and tasteful. And I think that's like the ultimate deciding factor in what's popular or not. It can be offensive to people, but if it has purpose and if it has, a taste level that's clear, then I think like people are going to get offended by anything regardless. So you just have to be knowledgeable about what you're trying to tell and be able to stand behind it and stand behind it proudly. And I think that's what a lot of artists are facing these days, because everybody's so critical with what gets put out there now. Everybody has become a critic, and that's not to say that we didn't expect that to happen, given that we're all quarantined at home binge watching TV and movies and stuff. Like, everybody, even before the pandemic, was an expert on movies and film. But now even more so, everybody's watching the same stuff and digesting the same content. So everybody has an opinion to join the conversation. And unfortunately, a lot of the times people have just negative opinions online. If you join the discussion boards for any popular show, there's always just the negative ones. The negative comments are always the ones that are most liked at the top of the feed.
Yeah.
So during this time when there's like the most original content available with all these streaming services, for some reason, we still have the most discontent among all the viewers. And that's just because we have a lot of access. But it's just an interesting observation as like a creative, putting yourself out there, that the level of competition has has gotten higher. It's become a lot more accessible at a consumer level, but but you open yourself to a lot more criticism too, because there's just a lot more people viewing content.
Yeah. Well, for me, the trick, it's not much of a trick anymore. I've been blessed to where I was able to just kind of like lock myself into this mindset. Like, I know I have a vision. Some people think, you should do better with this, or you should do something different with this. And I'm like, we can actually do something completely different. If you're saying do something different, then what's completely different? My vision for this thing, this is the vision. And this is where we're progressing, and it might progress and it might evolve down the road. But at some point, you got to pull the trigger on this. And someone's always going to shit on whatever it is you got going on. There's always going to be a negative comment. And the beauty, and another point of discipline, another point of rock solid mentality is, for example, my wife says to me, I can't take criticism. And I said, that's not true. I can take criticism. I might not put that criticism into my work. I can take the criticism. So, for example, somebody thinks there's too much foul language in the podcast. Okay, I'll take that into consideration. I took it into consideration. And then a week later, there's still too much foul language. Okay, don't watch it then. You can't take criticism. No, I took it then. Now it's harassment.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, point taken. Now moving on.
Yeah.
But you can't take criticism. I can take criticism. If when you first told me there's too much foul language in it, and I said, oh, fuck off, blah, blah. Now I can't take criticism. You told me, hey, I think there's too much foul language in your show. Okay. I took the criticism.
Duly noted.
Duly noted.
Yes.
A week later, there's still too much foul language. There's too much violence in your shows. Okay. Duly noted.
Yeah.
And then a week later, still a violent show. You didn't listen to what I said. No, I didn't. I don't care what you have to say. I took your criticism and I considered it for about 1 millisecond. And then I ignored it. Because this is my show. You think there should be shows out there with no violence, and then you make a show with no violence. I mean, it's just you're always gonna have somebody that has something to say about something.
Yeah, and if they completely undermine your project completely, if they just don't get a fundamental, aspect of it. So it's like, yeah, you have to take everything with a grain of salt.
Oh, of course I'm going to take the criticism and I'm going to make fun of it on the podcast a week later. I'm going to make fun of your criticism on the podcast. Of course I took it. So, Tyler, new normal, new year, new you, new normal, new Tyler. What comes to mind when I say that?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I mean,
I
mean, like the thing is that, like, I guess we're all just hoping to emerge from this hibernation that we've all kind of been experiencing in the past year. I feel like this whole, like, for the past couple of months, I've felt like to some degree it's been like, I mean, it's not, but it feels like I've been on a vacation to a certain degree, and like I need to get back in mentality, but I haven't. I've been working remotely, but I've just been at home. It's like I can't wait to get back out in the world. I guess that's the new me, when it's safe and when, I can get back out in the world responsibly. I can't wait to go on a plane, which I haven't done for a while. I can't wait to see my family. That's like a big thing that I'm looking forward to when, everybody has vaccines and blah, 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 when we can see each other again. Because I haven't seen my parents and my sisters since since last Christmas. So it's been a little over a year now, which is a decent amount of time. Some people go longer, but I mean, I don't normally go that long without seeing, you know, my parents and my family. And Zoom just isn't quite the same. So yeah, I guess like what I would love for 2021 is to regain some of that normalcy.
Yeah. Well, vaccines coming soon. I can speak on that. Vaccines are coming soon. And I have all the faith in the world. So yeah, I mean, I get it, man. I get it. It sucks. It sucks. I mean, you're right. You know, Zoom, you can only Zoom so much, and you can only FaceTime or whatever it is so much. And it's that in-person physical contact, physical camaraderie in the same room. Yeah, like I was a big handshaker and a big hugger. You know,
Yeah.
huge on that. You know, I shake someone's hand because, you know, I want to show that bond. I want to show that connection. Hug family or that half dap or whatever, you know, and it's like, you know, show that, you know, that sort of thing. And now it's just an elbow bump or a fist bump. And I mean, it's still good. I mean, it still serves its purpose, but you're absolutely right, man. It's like, you got to get back into that semi-hybrid, old normal, new normal type of in-person, you know, where you can actually feel that kinetic energy with each other, sort of environment. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not like kind of lagging on with internet or like technical problems. Like there's just like that.
Hello? Wait, hold on. Okay, I got you back. Okay.
There's something that you miss with that in-person contact.
Yeah.
And that'll be something to look forward to. But other than that, I guess getting my scripts out there that I've been working on while in the pandemic, and I've submitted it, my script, The Real McCoy, to a bunch of screenwriting competitions and fellowships, and just trying to make it the best script possible and use it as a way to promote myself as a writer, to gain some sort of use it as a calling card, as like my style of writing. So those are other things that I'm working on as part of my 2021 goals.
Hell yeah, man. Well, if there was one last point to make, one last bit of advice, and you kind of put a lot out there already, but if there was one last point you'd want to make, what would that be?
I mean, I guess if I had to give like any pointers to creatives and filmmakers out there, is to use every opportunity and every platform to be creative. You don't need a fancy camera or equipment to tell a story. You just need that inspiration. And with phones these days, you can make a movie on your phone with the built-in, obviously the camera and editing software, and there are different plugins that you can attach to your phone to make like a high quality product. So I think the big takeaway, and what I always tell people who are asking, how do I get noticed? You have to make your own content, and you don't get noticed by just asking to get noticed. You get noticed by making the content and making people notice you. So with the accessibility of with the accessibility of equipment these days, there's no reason for a creative not to be creating.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, Tyler, I can't thank you enough for coming on. Learned a lot, inspired a lot. Any plugs, links, socials you want to put out there before we go?
Yeah, you can find me on social media at Tyler Ham Pong, and my production company is at KTP Productions. We're killthepigproductions.com, and you can find us on Instagram at KTP Productions. So that's where you can keep up with all my work and all my production company's work.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Tyler, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and learned a lot. Links to Tyler's stuff in the description below. So check out those links, click them all down there. And to my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do.